All right. So let me call the TGS&A meeting for February 12, 2026 to order. Thank you everyone for coming. We have a full house tonight. Everyone on our committee has appeared, so that's great. The first item on our agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the October 27, 2025 meeting. I circulated that today. Did anyone have any comments or additions or edits to it? No? May I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Ann Gale, move. Second. Doug Kreutz, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Looks like any opposed? Abstentions? So it looks like that's unanimous. All right. So that should go in the minutes. So the next item on the agenda is discuss and vote on the proposal to amend Appendix C of the Darien Code of Ordinances to add Article 13, Sump Pump Removal Regulations. And I guess there's an accompanying ordinance proposal that also came to us last October. And we have our distinguished guests, Ed Gentile, the Chair of Public Works. We have Darren Ostapine, the Assistant Director, as well as Susan Cameron and Reese Hutchison. Reese is on the Sewer Commission, and Bobby Burney from Town Council's office. So thank you all for coming and speaking with us tonight. And I guess you'd like to kick it off and kind of give us some background on what's going on here?
We'd love to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate you having us tonight. Just kind of walk you through quickly. I'm going to say a few words. I'll be quick. And Susan would just like to say a few things.
Sure.
Turn it over to Bobby and kind of walk us through where we are, right? And discussions that let's see if we can actually continue to see the plan. So this removal sump pump ordinance. So first of all, right, what is I&I, or infiltration and flow, and where is it generated from? Right, that's our big concern. That's the questions I get more and more. Susan has provided us, and we handed it out to you on the back side of the graphs, some definitions, issues, problems. It's actually a good read. So, and I'm not insulted if you want to read it while I'm speaking. So have at it. So the question after we identify what our problems are is how do we remove them? We have some easy low-hanging fruit that we've gone after. We've lined the pipes that were leaking. We've lined the manholes that were leaking. We took care of inflow or direct inflow from other sources like catch basins or manholes where water actually just dropping right into our system. So that was the easy ones. We're going to take on the hard ones now. And the hard ones for us are the sump pumps. Because we don't know who has them, where they're connected, how much flow is coming out of them. Those are the ones that we're going to start targeting right now to see if we can get those removed also. We have a good idea they're there because of certain situations that happen during a rainstorm and after a rainstorm. It just gives me a kind of a general idea, but those general ideas are multiple places throughout. So where did we begin? So the Sewer Commission began about 5 years ago with a letter that was included in your bill. It talked about backflow valves and it talked about sump pumps. And for the last 5 years, we've included it in your bills. Just to kind of remind you, hey, if you have it, you shouldn't. If you need a backflow, call us, we'll talk to you about it. And I think I've handled close to about 100 calls on backflows, not so many on sump pumps. So we kind of ratcheted it up after we started doing our lining program, and now we're looking at 3 years ago, how do we incentivize, how do we get people to kind of be more concerned about what we're concerned about, which is direct inflow from sump pumps, and how do we educate them, right? Those are all these things that we were discussing. So we talked about many different approaches: passive, sending out letters; an active one, maybe we do inspections. There was a disincentive device, right? Hey, we're going to find where we're going to. We talked about all of these type of things. Do we do a local area? Do we do town-wide? Town-wide is 5,432 different customers. That's a big ask. The first one. Hopefully by then it drops down to something that's even more manageable. So we also work with our town attorney and how do we approach this, because we had a whole lot of different ideas on how to make this happen. And our attorney was able to kind of gather that along with the 5 sewer commissioners. And they all have different ideas, which is great. It did take us 3 years to get where we are right now, but we thought this was a fair program, let's put it that way. Goals. So we wanted to try to build collaboration, kind of incentivized to act type of thing. We don't want this to be punitive. We don't want your money. We want your information. So we want you to we need your cooperation. That's what we need from the residents and sewer users. We're going to target that private inflow, and we'd prefer to do that rather than to keep keep funding the mitigation measures throughout town to reduce I&I, because I think in the area we've worked on, 2/3 of it anyway was the town. We've gotten a lot of it. The piece right now is still the suburbs. Educate the users. We're going to teach them a little bit about what it costs to treat the water. How much does it cost? How much does it affect your bill? And I just had an opportunity to talk to Jack about that. So, we pay $3 million a year for the city of Stanford to treat our wastewater. If you just average it out, the guys have the graph right there in front of you. Let's say 50% of that is I&I, because it is. Sometimes they're less, sometimes they're more. That's $1.5 million. Let's say half of that, right, is Sump Pumps. It's $750,000 a year that we pay to treat clean water. If it's a little bit less, it's $500,000, maybe $500,000. That's still a lot of money to be paid to treat water. Basically looking at all of our sewer users are subsidizing a small group of users that have illegal connections. So our final product was to implement a compliance statement. Keep it simple. Keep the fines small. That was the incentive, right? Like I'm going to steal Bobby's thunder here. He called it a little nudge. You just want to nothing that you'll throw out at $250 to some people. Say, all I have to do is fill this out and send it back. That's a good thing. And let's do that. We're going to have to provide support to the sewer users because a lot of people are going to have questions. Some folks don't know if they have some folks don't know if it's where it's sliding or where it goes. We're prepared to do that. Between staff and the sewer commission, we're prepared to take on those questions because this is how serious they are about getting rid of this flow. Let's just quickly touch base on, and it's going to be a yearly program as of right now. Some folks have talked about 6 months or 90 days, whatever. Right now it's for 1 year, and we'll look at the responses and do we need to ratchet it up, or is this something that we could do 1 more year and we'll see if we can clean house a little bit further. Our expectations are, I'm guessing somewhere between 70–80% of most people will respond. That leaves about 25% or 20% of the folks. That runs you around fines $250. That looks like you're looking at around $300,000 in fines and revenue. That the commissioners have fully supported putting it back into the program, whether it is more notices, whether it is financial assistance, whether it is upgrading some of the storm drainage to make this work. It's going back into the program first, and that's their commitment to this program. But again, managing the expectations. I know there are going to be some folks out there that may not provide fully accurate information, deliberately or not. I know that.
But it's just not handed in the sheet.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And those folks are, as I'll steal from Craig now, is at the bottom side of our bell curve. We're looking for the big part, and we're going to have people at each end. They may or may not respond. They may not be accurate, but we know that going in. But that's the first pass. We want to see what we get. That information is that important. So, and finally, these results, they're going to reduce our flows to the city of Stanford. We're going to lower our payments to the treatment for this clean water. And then finally, they're going to help us reduce our SSOs where we have sewer overflows during higher rainstorms.
SSOs?
Sewer system overflows.
Okay.
Okay? That's where the water's coming up out of the manholes in the street, sometimes in the houses, depending on the locations. And as some of you folks may or may not know, about 5–6 years ago, we had an issue in Long Island Sound. They brought a lawsuit against the town because of our SSOs. We had just started into our I&I program, which kind of helped us work with them to where we could, minimize the amount of activity that they are involved with us. They still oversee some of what we do. I give them a report once a year. But that lawsuit could have been a whole lot worse if we hadn't started and continued to do it. I'm sorry.
Who brought the lawsuit?
The state of Sound. In conjunction with DEP, but I think the DEP just let them run with it. So that's where we are right now.
Do they sue everybody else on the sound?
They're busy with the other towns right now rather than Darien, so I just kind of keep my head down and continue to do this program.
Out of sight, out of mind.
There's no reason for me to bother them if they're not doing bothering me.
I mean, that's an excellent presentation on the reasons for the ordinance and the proposed regulations. The question, I think, really before this committee is, how do we make them, right for the town? So,
I don't want to cut her off. I know Susan did
Yeah.
want to say a couple words.
Oh, yeah,
Do you
yeah,
want-
yeah.
Do you want me to bring the microphone over to you?
I would recommend that you, when this comes before the RTM, which hopefully will be at some point in the near future,
Yeah.
you make this entire presentation to the RTM. Because I think they need to understand the importance of what we're doing and why it needs to be done.
I'd love to send this document that I have in front of you out to them too.
Sure.
If you feel that's something that is valuable.
I would also include the cost to the town explicitly if you can and estimate, because like one of the major questions coming in is like, how big of a problem is this that we're bazookaing it, and $750,000 a year makes it a big problem.
And understand, those are just rough estimates. I can do
Yeah.
numbers in my head. I round up a lot. So, and I think that's qualified, yes.
That's part of the reason why now ethically considering the reporting. Because half the people in that audience didn't know that this is a separate fund.
Jack,
This has nothing to do with them.
sorry, if you're gonna,
And
we'd love to hear from you, but you're gonna have to speak into the mic so that the audience, our friends at home can hear.
Yeah, this is part of the reason why F&B joined this round of reporting. One of the important things is to explain to the audience, members, this has nothing to do with your taxes. This is a separate fund. It handles only those who have connections. And so we also want to explain how the fund works. We actually vote on it every year, and people are dead and asleep by that time. Sorry, you're not paying attention. But that's part of what we want to explain, and that's what Ed and I were talking about, to provide these financials, to talk about what it is. The committee that I chair, we're not looking at the ordinance and the regulations. I mean, we have, but that's your committee's job. We're talking on the financials. So that answers some of it. And anything that you think, like if you think this should be in, let me know, and I'll make sure it attaches it when it comes through.
Susan, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Susan Cameron, I'm a member of the Sewer Commission. I prepared this document, which you received. I wanted to remind everyone what INI is, because I think we might be losing track of it. And I wanted to point out how rainfall impacts INI. We now have a rain gauge on the top of Town Hall, so I pulled the numbers and compared it. And you'll see, for instance, in fiscal year 24, when we had a lot of rain, the INI was more than 50% of the flows to St. The other piece I want to make sure everyone understands, who is paying for this? It is not the town, it is the sewer users. So the people who are pumping stormwater into the sanitary sewer are getting a fabulous deal, and everyone else is picking up the cost of that water. I just want to make sure everyone realizes. I did happen to go through and look up where everyone lives. It's on the town website, and 82% of the RTM are sewer users. So 82% of you are impacted by this. I really appreciate all of the work everyone is doing. As Ed mentioned, we have been sending this notice for 5 years. No one has come in to ask about it. And now that we have moved forward to the next step, I really think it's great that everyone is so interested and that you're all providing information and helping us to make this the best Sump Pump ordinance, because we are the cutting edge. No one else is doing this yet. So we will be writing something that other people will be looking at in other towns, not just in Connecticut, but all up and down the coast. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
Susan.
So this came to vote at the RTM like in
October.
I recall one of the issues that someone had was that like it was a concern on like how, you know, like elderly people on fixed income would have to do the repair and pay for it. Is there any scenario in which you identify that there's a sump pump tied into the sewer system and then you can pay an additional charge because you're, you know, is that
It's
an
not
option?
a good plan to be sending, it's illegal to send this water through the wastewater treatment plant. So that is not a good plan. However, we just haven't come up with a policy yet, but everyone on the sewer commission is wanting to help out people who are going to have a financial struggle with this. Our goal is not, to be honest, our goal is to get the water out of the sanitary sewer.
And so the fix is to simply disconnect it from the sewer and then put it into the yard, or, you know.
Into the yard, if you can't put it into your yard, I'm not sure. That's why we don't even know the extent of the problem yet, because we don't know. Nobody's gotten back to us as to what
That
they're
was
doing.
my question as well, is what is the cure for disconnecting into the sewer? Like I'm thinking, I was saying before, one of my first houses was on Engagement Street. I had 3 sump pumps. They all went down, I think, and I don't know if they were connected to the sewer or not, but where that house is located, even if I disconnected it and I had it going out the backyard, it's going to end up on the street where the catch basin is. So I'm not sure whether your financial figures are still going to, like if you think you have 100% disconnect, you're going to have 100% savings. I have a feeling that 80% of that water is still going to make it down to the road and go into the storm drain, if that's still
The storm drain is not the sanitary
That's not the sewer.
Right,
No,
right.
the sanitary sewer is a closed system in Darien. This is not true everywhere. Some people have joint systems, but we do not.
So the storm drain is, I
The
didn't
storm drains,
understand.
and I'm not going to get ahead of Ed, but he has said that it's very possible we'll have to add more stormwater infrastructure to handle this problem. And he's willing to entertain that. We just need people to tell us what they're doing, how they're doing it, and come and ask for help. And since they haven't in 5 years done anything, this is our next step. We had to do something. Because we are, I am a fiduciary for the sewer users. I need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence here.
Hold on, Zach. Matt, to your question about could we charge users to pay for their outflow, we don't know what that outflow is. The way the sewer system or sewer charges work right now is they measure how much inflow you take, how much water you take out of
It's
Aquarion right
yeah.
now. So, and they average that, and that's how they calculate what the sewer bill is. But they have no idea how much water is leaving your property. So it would be impossible to actually accurately charge people for their outflow if they did connect.
At least not yet.
Yeah,
I know technology will eventually come up with a way to measure this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have closed system.
So if somebody was connecting to their sewer, is that likely to be like in their basement, like a plumber or somebody would have done that?
A plumber, or you if you're...
I mean, they're not going to go into the road.
Okay, I'm not going to say where this was, but I went to inspect one that was being disconnected, and it was simply the sewer pipe coming up out of the ground, open, and another black corrugated pipe going into it. There was no, I'm learning all kinds of new words, there was no firm code. Am I saying that right? Firm code?
Rubber connector.
Rubber connector. I'm learning so much since I've come onto the sewer commission. There was nothing. It was just one pipe dumping into another pipe.
Like a washing machine.
Yes, exactly, like a washing machine.
Zach, you
So
had a
the
question?
connections
Oh, sorry.
are all going to be different. Sometimes they'll be in the driveway and you don't even know it.
Right. Zach?
What would be your estimate typical cost for mediation for an individual? Like,
I don't think there is a typical class that's going. Somebody like that, all they have to do is pull that pipe out and send it out the window into the yard.
what's to prevent someone that's like, I don't want to deal with this, I don't know anything about it, I'm just going to check the boxes?
There is no one preventing them from being a cheater,
Okay.
but eventually, we will know. Eventually, it may be 10 years, but this will change. I honestly don't love the system. It's just a guess. We're using 5 months in a year. It doesn't catch, try not to catch irrigation. It doesn't catch the people who are in Florida for the winter and they come and use a bunch of water in the summer. It's not a perfect system, but if we could get outflow metering, and everybody will pay. And these people will find a way to move their stormwater out of the sanitary
Right.
sewer.
Where's
Half-
it going? Where's the water go?
It's going to have to go into a yard, into a detention system,
That would be groundwater, which you
Groundwater?
also don't want, right?
right? We don't want any inflow.
Where are people supposed to put their water?
It depends on who you are, and can you now pipe it out to the stormwater system?
I think we all have to admit that's going to be another issue, that, if we're going to take water out of the sewer system and put it into yards, it's going to have to go somewhere. And,
Right.
I think Susan mentioned that it's considering we may need additional stormwater
Right.
mitigation issues.
If you have a
And
street
the-
where everyone is pumping to the sanitary sewer,
Right.
that's a problem.
But, I mean, we have to deal with one problem at a time, I think. So let's deal with this problem, and then if that creates new problems, we'll have to deal with that too.
Exactly.
This is super straightforward math when you can do it, which is like,
Oh, good.
you have this flow going out, and this is how much we purchased, so that means the delta has to be I-9.
Yep.
Is there any other explanation of where that water, or like, is there something that we could be missing in there?
It's not perfect math.
It's not perfect.
No.
It's using Aquarian's data for what's being used in the house, and we're trying to level it by the months that wouldn't be irrigation. Doesn't necessarily mean that much went down the pipe, which would suggest
It also doesn't include well people.
much higher. Right.
We have 129 people who get their water from wells, but they pump to the sewer.
Right.
So it
Doug?
doesn't include that water either, it's not perfect, but this is a good indication that there's a
We
problem.
don't have a charging system for how much they're actually putting down the pipe.
Doug has a question?
Yeah, you put this lovely data in front of us, and whenever I see data, I'm always compelled to ask questions. I note that the water use in 25 is significantly higher than the prior 5 years. Is there a reason for that?
I think it was because it was a very dry fall. We've had a lot of people come in, and I was one of them. My sewer bill was way higher than it usually is. After having a very wet summer, on my irrigation system, I drag out hoses and I drag out sprinklers and I move them around in the yard. I never even got out hoses until the middle of September, and then it stopped raining. And people had put in new plantings, and they had to keep watering. We've had a lot of people come in and ask for leniency on their sewer bill, because in fact, the November bill picks up half of October and half of November. We're thinking of changing the way we're doing it. We haven't come to a decision yet. I'm certainly a proponent of moving it to the spring, because a lot of people continue to irrigate in the fall. It's a great time to plant.
Right.
It's an excellent time to plant.
So just a follow-up, looking at I&I versus rainfall, if I plotted 21, 22, 23, and 24 in a graph, it's pretty close to a straight line. And then if I plot 25 on there, it's way below the line, about 30% below what I would have expected given the rainfall. So can you attribute that to the mitigation measures that you've been putting into place?
Yes, I hope so. That would be what I would think immediately. I'm looking forward to another year of data, because I'm a data person.
Yeah.
I'd like to get another year of data in there to really solidify that number, but that certainly looks like it to me. We spent millions.
I think that's an important point, because if people feel like, look, the town's already done a lot to try to minimize this problem. We're not coming to you first, right?
Exactly.
We're only coming to you now.
Yeah, we've been working hard. I mean, Ed can certainly go on and on and on to tell you all the things we've done.
Is there not any regulation that could be tied to like building permits or sale of the house, like radon, where over time you?
That's a good idea.
Ask the real estate commission.
Reese, do you want to come up and speak?
I mean, it seems like that would be a
You have
fairly
to speak
easy.
into the microphone and give your name.
I've been doing this as long as you have. I'm a little younger. Susan and I started, we met each other in 2001 on the EPC, and I've been there since '99, and we went to planning and zoning. I did a couple other things, and now we've been on the sewer commission for years. And just one brief thing, I see this tool that we're asking for your help creating is the minimum amount necessary to get the data back. We have the ability to take a more aggressive stance with known violations if we had to. And we wanted to involve you guys in helping us craft this regulation. So there's just, again, the smallest tool in the box is to try and gather data, figure out what's up there. We know there are going to be problems in the solutions. There's some that are going to be very, very difficult, where the town will be involved with creating drainage structures and trying to create an ability to resolve these problems. It's not simple, but we literally have spent every other effort to try and make the system better, armor everything from storms to catch basins to the pipelining to cammering all the lines, any misconnections, and this is our next step. And sadly, this might have been the lowest hanging fruit in terms of bang for the buck that we could have first done. And it's going to be interesting once we do this to let the engineers know when they do another town system, hey, don't give up on that. We even tried smoke testing, see if smoke
I remember that.
gutters.
Yeah.
It check valves, most of that. But anyway, so this is where we are, and we really appreciate your help, especially David. Like, if there's any little tweaks, we're cool with that. anything you guys can do to get the word out, great with that too. So anyway, to your point about disclosures and sales, I did reach out to somebody who used to be on the real estate commission. They would not add that as a disclosable item on a purchase and sale. It should be picked up though. It's against the plumbing code. And we have heard, I have personally heard of plumbers that wouldn't hook up a sump pump.
Why wouldn't they pick it up, though, even if there was no penalty, but just because the new owner would probably want to be alerted to that? And if you have knowledge that it's in there, you just disclose it. Not saying you have to fix it, but...
I would agree with you. Sometimes experts are chosen on their ability to make an efficient transaction. And some lawyers can be that way, inspectors can be that way, and would the troublemaker get more business or less business? I don't know. Is it something people should know about? Yes. And I think when we make it more and more of a publicly known thing, more people will.
Well, especially, Susan's saying someday you'll know. So I think a homeowner, I'd have a big problem with not having been told.
Yeah.
that,
There's also issues like, I think Susan kind of alluded to this a little. There will be cases where we don't know. There's a pipe that goes out into the ether, and it may be connected out in the yard, or it may have been done when the house was built, and there's no way of knowing. It's not like a simple, where the pipe goes in there, it's into the sewer, and there's the sewer. And sometimes it can be complicated if somebody's been sneaky in the past and knew it was a problem and dealt with it that way. So we're going to deal with those. There's going to be some that's like, you just follow the pipe, and there's the sewer, and there's the clean out. But again, we have a technical knowledge, not everybody does. And we've told Ed and Darren, if people want to call us as friends and say, hey, can you come take a look at this? And if it's something I can't figure out, or, originally we thought an expert, like a plumber, and I'm like, people don't have to pay someone to do this. Many people have common sense and can look at it and say, no, this is where it goes. And if you need a higher degree of expertise, you could reach out to a plumber or the sump pump people, Connecticut Basement Systems. I think they've mostly been installing systems to code. And to your point about where does the water go, I know that you've brought that up many times. There are going to be some horrible situations. And having been on the Wetlands Board and P&Z, we helped write Section 880, which required people to mitigate their increased impervious coverage and slow it down and infiltrate it in the ground where possible, the most possible, and not impact the neighbors and help with flooding. And Susan and I both sat on the 2007 flood committee that looked at the watershed and how we had flooding in the Stony Brook watershed, and looking at cost-benefit analysis of buying houses, for instance, and how do we protect some homeowners from flooding, and how do we help increase drainage. And that becomes a very complex engineering question very quickly. So we know we're going to deal with some of that. But as Craig Clarity, that's the end of the bell curve. There's hopefully going to be smaller and smaller people at the tail end where there are really, really difficult solutions need to be looked at.
There's no way to tie it into, my father was the building inspector here for almost 40 years, so I'm just thinking there's not a way to tie it into a building inspections to get a CO.
Yeah, you know what's interesting?
A one-more box to check for the building, because, if your patio is over the line or your fences, those usually all have to be fixed before you can do what you want to do.
Yep.
Why not just add a simple box like that?
I think we've had great, that in the last 4 or 5 years, I know I'm really close with Mike Beatty and the whole staff at building, and they've been great. When they do a permit for a kitchen and they see it, they bring it to our attention, and it's resolved at that point. Because at that point, the homeowner has given permission for staff and town to come and inspect their property. And if it is noticed, they've been looking, and it's great. And it's really helpful. We really appreciate their help, because they are at the front lines.
They are the ones who brought to our attention, the one that I went and looked at, was the building department.
Yeah. We appreciate your help so much. You guys are like, our marketing committee. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Reese. Anyone else? Matt?
Is it inhumane to just cut off water supply if they don't comply?
Yes.
We have you have no ability to cut off a water supply. That's a water company.
Oh, Zach?
The exchange that you guys just had, I'm sorry, I'm new, so I'm...
No.
But like requiring it for exchange of sale, like to require that inspection be done in, it kind of, maybe from reading between the lines, it sounded like maybe there were some people on another committee that might have been real estate agents.
I'm a
that
broker.
Watch that?
I'm a broker.
Okay.
So that's why I was able to ask that question up to the real estate commission on the disclosure statement. Would they add it? They're like, they're not adding anything.
Is that something that they can say that because it's one committee to another, but if this continues to be a problem and we get people that aren't these two committees involved, they no longer have the ability to say, no, we're not gonna add that box?
Oh, it's nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with the town. That's in a real estate transaction when you buy your house through the broker.
We can't, but
No,
so
we have no say in that. It's
when
private.
I came from, I was in Ohio before this, and it was required by the town that you had to get inspections done by the town on things like, is your sidewalk cracked? Is your driveway cracked leading out to the sidewalk? And
Wow.
and so it was very detailed, and the town.
At a point of sale.
At a point of sale.
No, we don't have that in Connecticut at all. No.
What is radon? Is that a state regulation?
That's in there.
Yeah, I know it
Usually,
is.
Yeah.
How did that
yeah,
get in
I
there?
think
Similar.
so. The regulations are set at a certain point. They're all tested. Yeah, if you have a mortgage.
But who
I
said
think
that?
Jack
Who said
did.
the problem?
Yeah, I want to add to
Jack
what
Davis has
Lisa's
something.
saying in two things, and I want to stress something. It is against the law for a plumber to have the discharge going into the sewer system from a sump pump. That's a state law. So the plumber can be fined and blah, blah, blah going on. So first, let's understand that on new installations, a licensed plumber knows what the law is. So that's one thing that helps. The other thing that I've had, because quite honestly, I wasn't paying attention until we tabled it for a while. Yeah, really. And yeah, I never saw that said I should fill this in. The fact of the matter is that most real estate agents, there is a question when a house is being put up for sale, do you have a sump pump? So that's in there. Now, whether or not you know where it's going is a whole different issue. And so, depending upon, which is totally within the commission's purview, if they go back to Article 11 and they find an illegal one, that allows up to a maximum of $100 a day. That's already written in our ordinances. And each day is a separate fine. So if you're not fixing something for 180 days, you've now come to the break point with you can pay the fine or you can fix it. And so, but that's totally at the discretion of how they want to implement it. The other thing is, the commission has the right, at least how I read it, that they can waive a fine. So they want to work with people. If you have these fines building up and somebody comes in and says, I don't want to pay the fine, what can I do? And you're working with somebody, they can waive the fine to get it out, because the goal isn't to add money to the sewer fund. They got a lot of money in there. You'll hear that from me later. But,
Not really.
yeah. But the fact of the matter is,
Sure.
I know.
No. It's a blink of an eye.
We can talk about it. The fact of the matter is that one of the alternatives, and this I know from speaking, is that if they choose to fund, we could do a transfer from the reserve account into their operating account to fund that financial aid. So that I've had, confirmation from the town that that's a thing to do. So that can be done at any time. It's a fund transfer, and we can go from there. So that, I'm not worried about how they're going to finance the money there. That's
I think,
not my
Jack,
thing.
you're jumping the gun. This is really just
Right.
a sump pump affidavit.
No,
We're not talking
I know,
about
but
anything else.
I'm just saying
But I get where
that,
you're coming from.
that some of the questions I asked, there are answers to. So, but real estate agents are supposed to have an answer that there's a sump pump there.
Or a known water problem,
Yeah,
seepage,
yeah.
drain, any kind of an issue. And there's a little, you can fill in at least you could fill in the writing, what you're.
All right. Jessica has a question, then Zach, and I believe these guys need to get up to Public Works too to do this. Yeah, no, well, Bobby we want to hear
It's
from
gonna
as
be
well.
quick though, right?
So, So maybe a couple more questions on why we need the ordinance, and then we'll move on to Bobby and release these guys to go talk to Public Works.
Two very, very quick questions. First, that $100 a day fine, is there anything in here that gives assurance that submitting this form won't subject you to that fine?
I personally, I'm just speaking for myself, that $100 is if there's a known violator that's going like this. And then what do you do? Okay, this is the soft approach. We had to put something in there. Many people, $250 is a rounding error in this town. And those, check. And that's not our goal. We really want data, and we want to try and understand the system, including who might have some pumps that are a problem, and then whittle it down from there. So that's why we're here. It's not about a $100 fine per day. We never even talked about that. That's statute, and we're allowed to do it, but it's not why we're here at all.
Yeah, what creates a little ambiguity is the $100 fine is in one part of the code.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a daily, I guess you have to remediate the issue within 30 days, and then you start getting hit with the fine. This new proposed regulation gives you 6 months to remediate the issue.
It's a soft approach. This is about information.
Right. But the proposed regulation says you have 6 months to fix the issue, so that needs to be clarified at some point.
You're seeing a conflict between the two.
Right.
The $100 is a May.
But that can be handled by Bobby. Right. I mean, that's a technical issue.
I see what you're thinking.
The two ordinance regulations need to be conformed so they don't
Well, this is
conflict
about
with
just
each other.
sending the affidavit back, so nothing to do
Right.
with a violation.
No, but there is that provision that says you need to remediate the issue within 6 months, or you'll be subject to getting another form and another $250 fine or whatever. So they just need to be brought in conformance with each other.
Bobby's gonna try to talk
And then
about that.
second, very
Get him
quick
up.
question. It looks like in here it says special consideration will be given to property owners that provide adequate information to support the need for additional time if requested. Is there, I guess just trying to think of it as someone who's like, oh my gosh, what is this? How do I, like, is there any reason you didn't provide examples of information to guide residents who think they need additional time? Do you think it's just because you're going to be very lenient?
No, we're going to be very lenient. If you ever watched us, we take pains to try and analyze exactly what a waiver should be if there was a leak. We do math. The space shuttle would be happy.
I think the issue on our side is that, yes, we understand that the commission is very lenient right now and they want to do the right thing and that Ed's heart is in the right place, but who knows what town government's going to be like in 10 years.
David, you know why? That's why I'm here tonight. Because Susan and I have done many things on many boards.
Right.
And what we are doing right here will do more for the environment and our fiduciary for this system than we did on zoning.
No, but that's why,
wetlands.
when I looked at the ordinance, I added some, descriptions of what would be the kind of criteria that would warrant special consideration. Are you elderly? Are there some special issues with your property? Just to flesh out what special consideration means.
Oh, could be, I think it might have to be a project in the road.
But I mean, it could be a lot of things, but I think, just having special consideration
like
without somehow
examples?
defining what it means.
Okay.
Would be, that sort of thing would be helpful for town residents and also for future administrations to know how they're going to apply the special consideration criteria.
We didn't want to get into that as much because we were narrowing that down, and there's a consensus that we want to help financially and how we do it, and there are mechanisms in town for people that have hardships with their taxes, for instance.
Right, but when it's too subjective, it becomes too subjective.
We don't want
future
anything here,
administrations.
Right,
Well,
we can change that. We can change this as a policy next month.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so it's.
It's asking for a lot of trust.
Yeah.
These are questions that I.
Yeah.
Right. I think Zach has one more question,
Yeah,
and
go
then
ahead.
Bobby will go.
Bobby, thank you.
I'm just going to roll it up into more of a statement because we probably don't have time for my questions.
No, do a quick question.
But
come on.
To me, I'm hearing like, okay, 50% of this, we think 50% of this is
or more
is residential flow. Maybe you have ideas about where it is, where it's not. Maybe there's an opportunity to be more targeted. It's a ton of questions in and around there. But like, if I'm thinking about how this spreads out across the majority of the houses, and I look at this, I just had HVAC issues because it's been so cold here for 3 months that I had the condensation dripping outside of the house. It froze. It shut down my HVAC. The air. So I called in a guy from the HVAC. He looked everywhere. He goes, I can't for the life of me figure out which pipe is going where, I don't know where the sump pump's going, I would put this in with the sump pump, but I don't know.
Talked about that.
So like,
Your house needs a story.
I bought this house 2 years ago, or less than 2 years ago. I have no idea on this, but if I got this in the mail, not for anything negative, I'd be confused, I might not answer. If I just was being lazy, I just don't want to hassle, I check the things that kept me from getting billed. My concern is like, not even out of malicious nature, if you need 2,000 households to change their behavior and to do some form of mitigation for this to impact what you need to do, or for even to answer accurately, for you to have an assessment of the data that's going to be helpful to you, I'm concerned you might not get it. I came in here thinking this was like, oh, this is very necessary. Now I'm thinking it might be too lenient.
Oh,
but
I love that. But you got to understand, I'm a libertarian. I hate this government thing. So what's the minimum amount necessary to meet the need here?
Your guy's been in government for 30 years, and you hate this government thing.
My wife points that out. It's horrible.
You've been working on this for like multiple years, five years, I think. And you said like pretty much no one's responded to these letters. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot. I think it's great, and I think it's great you want to be lenient and everything on people. My concern from this, and I don't know enough to be able to provide you positive feedback in terms of which direction to go, is that you're not going to get much more.
Well, you guys are a 100-member board, and you got elected. You're going to help us.
I would love to help. I would love to help. My concern is if you know a problem area, if you know a specific neighborhood, specific region in the problem area.
Pick where there's a river or a stream nearby.
Do like a heavy focus there, maybe like provide some of the resources that do the inspection. Like I think this might be too light-handed and you might end up back here.
We might be.
Without having made a huge.
I'm just hesitant to go with any bigger stick. I think we're all like that. We've just
It's not great for property value. If someone wants to come buy a house, you can't get a sump pump, you can't get your water out of your house.
Well, you can. In many houses, there's a street drainage system nearby, and there was a hesitancy in the last 15 years to hook up to the street drainage. I can go into many detail about that. Maybe it's 20 years. That's lenient now. Ed can approve that. A connection right into the stormwater system out in front of your house.
If you let people know.
Yeah, and that's changed, and it's going to be more cooperative. And we know we may even have to pay for some of that as a sewer commission because it benefits us. So we're going to cooperate with Public Works, and we're going to work with them in any way we can. And if the town needs to bear some of that cost and make it better, that's going to be. They're going to be very difficult situations, though. There's absolutely.
No one wants a house that needs a sump pump that has nowhere to go. They're not going to buy it. Yeah.
That's why I think the best solution is that solution. You're going to get 100% adoption. It may take 20 years in some of the tails, but every time you have a sale, you have a house you're sure is not.
In Greenwich, I think they actually do lateral inspections on some of the sales. They're a little bit more belt and suspenders and camera, and I know for a building permit, they actually require them to make sure the lateral from their house to the sewer system is good, and they will make them fix it before they give them a building permit. So there's other levels, and many other towns have done this. We're really going to be cutting edge here, pushing the envelope in terms of trying to get people to comply. And that's the goal, because then there's more capacity, the manholes don't pop, people are happy, the environment's better, and there's more fish in Long Island Sound.
Do you guys have guns? Do you have guns?
No.
All right, maybe we could hear from Bobby Burney now, town council.
Very much for your time.
So no, thank you, Reese.
Sorry for taking
Appreciate all the background and everything you guys are doing.
Good evening, Bobby Burney from Town Council's office. I was the one who originally drafted both the regulations and the ordinances. So I think really I'm here tonight to help explain how these came to be, the roles the regulations vis-a-vis the ordinance play, what we're asking for from the RTM, as opposed to what the Sewer Commission is doing, and how they relate to one another. And I will do dealer's choice. I'm sure you all have questions. Would you rather I start with an explanation of why they work the way they do, why there's an ordinance and why there's a regulation, or do you want to just jump in and ask me questions and we can take it from there?
I think it'd probably be best if you just tell us, what you think is important, and then we'll ask our questions.
Of course, of course. An important concept to understand here, and I think this has been the root of a lot of confusion about what the ordinance is, why there's an ordinance, why there are regulations, how they interact with one another. Often, in Darien, you have the the charter, you have the Code of Ordinances, and you have what us lawyers like to refer to as Appendix C, which is administrative regulations. That is where the Sewer Commission's current sanitary sewer regulations and fog regulations fall under. Importantly, the authority of the Sewer Commission to act with regard to matters involving the sewer system is not derived from the RTM or from the Code of Ordinances. It's derived from state law, and their capacity is the Water Pollution Control Authority for the sewer system for Darien. There's a statute that outlines what powers the Sewer Commission as WPCA has. Those powers are exceptionally broad, even when you go into sort of the case law analysis around them. There's a Supreme Court case law where, I'm paraphrasing, but they effectively say, so long as it's not arbitrary or illegal, WPCA can do whatever they want with regard to the sewer system. The regulations are the Sewer Commission's purview. They are what the Sewer Commission is authorized to do as WPCA. In this context, we have a very unique, novel program. I think I'm the third person to say that already, so I think you get the point on that, and that no other town has this. You need to use it as a reference point. There's the fat, oil, and grease regulations in town. Almost every municipality in Connecticut has, we call them FOG. They have FOG regulations. They became so popular that DEEP adopted its own model FOG program and said, this is how we think you should do it. In that kind of context as a lawyer, that job's very easy, because then I can just go and I can look at what other towns have done, I can look at what DEEP says. If DEEP says you can find people for this activity, wonderful. I know that that is something the Sewer Commission as WPCA can do. We don't have that here, because this is a new program that is meant to really tackle a problem that is, I wouldn't say unique to Darien, but very specific to Darien. Because of that, I have advised the Sewer Commission, I'll advise any town official, I'll advise you, we have to have a level of both caution, and I think a sense that this isn't just the Sewer Commission, this is also, hopefully, the RTM supporting the larger program here. The regulations, the Sewer Commission does have the authority. I can't sugarcoat the words, they do have the authority to adopt their own regulations here. And if my opinion were asked, I would say they do have the authority to adopt those regulations, sans the RTM if necessary. Where the RTM really comes in here, where the specific ordinance comes in, is because this is a new program. The WPCA has the authority to adopt its own rules and regulations under state law. What they don't have is an express authority to fine you for failing to comply with those regulations. It's implied, inherently, and clearly to some degree the state accepts that, and the courts accept that, because FOG regulations and other sanitary regulations get upheld all the time, even though they aren't passed by a legislative body. But because this is new, if, for example, and I don't think I'm going to be in this position, but I have with other things, so I can't say it's impossible, but if I end up in court and I'm in front of a judge and the judge says, under what basis are you fining people for failing to turn in compliance statements and information about their sump pumps? I'd say, well, Your Honor, it's implied. That's not a really great argument to make, especially when you're talking about a completely unique new program you're developing. But the RTM does have, under, I forget the exact statute, 7-148, the RTM has the ability to adopt ordinances for miscellaneous violations of both ordinances and regulations. And that is what we're pulling from when we have the proposed ordinance here. To be able to, under that miscellaneous violation provision, RTM can say, you are violating an ordinance or a regulation for any reason. You can be fined for up to $250 per violation. My position is that it's better to tailor the fines and the enforcement mechanism to, we call it the citation process. That is what this authorizing statute does. To tailor them to a citation process that's been adopted by the RTM. I also think, and this is outside of my purview as the lawyer, but even just listening to all of you tonight, clearly there's a lot of questions about all of this and about how it's going to work and what new issues may arise, and that does dovetail into the regulations. David, I'm interested in your comments. I think a lot of them are very good, And I think that as we move forward here, the regulations themselves are going to have to be revised and amended and changed as we get new information, as the program continues. What information are we getting back? Who's not complying with this? What new problems are we discovering about how people use sump pumps and the issues that may arise from them disconnecting? Part of the regulations right now are purposefully, I don't want to call vague, but open-ended. What constitutes an authorized discharge? What factors or criteria do you have to consider to be provided assistance or additional time? The concern I have when you're drafting something that is brand new without a lot of guidance is that if you create brand new XYZ factors, first you're creating a new ground upon which people can challenge the enforceability of what you're doing. And second, you run the risk of if people don't want to deal with this, they'll just look, some of the smarter ones want to look online and just look at this and say, well, oh, I do XYZ factor, that's me. So I'm okay, you can't get me in trouble, you can't find me, I satisfy this criteria. We don't, I think, yet fully know what those criteria should be. what is a situation where you do think this is legitimately a hardship that needs to be specifically addressed or authorized in some circumstance? But from here, obviously there are issues with unauthorized discharge in general. But I think we need to have the sewer commission needs to have some flexibility as to how to fill in some of these blanks moving forward. Again, David, your comments were great. I think a lot of them are things that I would want to say, let's get these in some of the regulations as we move forward. At this moment, when it comes to the RTM's role here is to authorize the citation process for these regulations. If the goal is to get the regulations, I don't want perfect or near perfect before an ordinance is adopted, we'll never get this done. Because these regulations, we won't know how to fully flesh these regulations out until these notices start going out, until people start returning information. So my concern is that we'll get stuck into an endless loop of chicken and egg, who gets to go first here. To a certain degree, I think that we'll have to move forward with the understanding that these regulations have to be adapted, revised, as the situation develops. I realize that puts you in the uncomfortable position of adopting an ordinance that authorizes fines for something that is going to have to change at some point as the situation moves on. And I want to be fair and make sure we balance both the RTM's role in this and the Sewer Commission's authority over the sewer system. And I think it's clear that the Sewer Commission's done a lot over the past few years to sort of develop this situation and work out a plan, and we've talked about it a bunch, about how best to do this. And in that context, I think both having regulations, with the understanding that they are going to have to be a living document that's going to have changes be done to it as we move forward, coupled with what is ultimately an ordinance that is just authorizing a citation process for those is the best way to accomplish that goal. That's my spiel.
All right. Well, I think part of the problem here is there's been a bit of confusion as to what was given to the RTM. We weren't given a resolution for this committee to consider to report on to the RTM. And, the proposed ordinance that was presented to us in October had a lot of issues. I think all of us raised issues with it, and we're not very comfortable with it. And then we saw the proposed regulations and thought that these, if we're being asked for our consent to these regulations, then we should have some input into it. And, I haven't had a chance to have the committee discuss the proposed regulations or ordinances, but, I think we do feel that the RTM deserves to have a role. And again, if you need our permission, then the Sewer Commission ought to take our input. And, I think we all like to work on this in a collaborative process. I think we all understand, especially after hearing from Ed and Reese and Susan tonight about the dire need of the town to address this issue.
Yes.
That it needs to be addressed, but it seemed a little rushed to try to get it onto the February agenda. At least that was my opinion. And hearing from what we're hearing tonight, it seems that we need a resolution, we need a revised ordinance that incorporates some of the issues that we've discussed tonight, including the ability to fine and some of the parameters that's going to go on under before our committee can really have a fulsome discussion and be prepared to report to the RTM on it.
Of course.
I guess I'd like to open up the floor to people who have questions for Bobby.
I have a question.
Yeah, Jessica?
I understand that you feel this needs to be a living document. However, given how long it's taken for this to even get to this stage, do you think it's really realistic that any amendments to this will be able to occur in real enough time for the pretty vague portions of this to not become a hindrance or even damaging to members of this town?
I think in a general sense, the regulations, part of the reason why they are broad and soft-handed is because at this stage, there really shouldn't be a huge personal penalty. This is, again, it's information gathering. We want you to comply, we want you to cooperate. So if as we move forward, if that changes, if there for some reason this needs to be adapted to have some, a stronger punch to it, to be able to get more information. The idea that residents could be harmed now and between the time a stronger enforcement mechanism may be considered, I don't tangibly see the harm they could suffer at this point, because were you not to comply, fines are very low from the get-go. I'm sorry, but
no, but for example, what we were kind of discussing before with Reese, it says, you may be able to get additional time, and there are no factors outlined for what would enable you to get that additional time. I am a fairly new resident to this town who is still getting to know people and town government. The odds of me knowing what to say and who to talk to get that additional time are probably far lower than someone who's been here for 30 years and knows who to talk to, who's on what committee. So I understand where you're coming from, but it's a little disturbing to me to see that there's been intentional vagueness because of fear of a bad actor of Darien going through and finding a loophole. I would hope that we would be trusting our citizens to have, you know, a good faith approach and be educating themselves to help them comply with what might be a shocking statement in the mail versus, you know, I mean, if someone's willing to just pay the $250 fine, it really doesn't matter what's outlined, they're just gonna pay it. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. And I wouldn't say it's out of concern over the nefarious bad actors out there who just want to get out of trouble, so to say. It's more that right now, because we don't have the information to know the full situation of what are the issues, you know, what is going to arise with people disconnecting, what, you know, individual circumstances may have that are unique that may require some flexibility. We don't have that information yet. So that's why I go back to the chicken and egg analogy. It's like, how do we create those factors when we don't know what's the underlying situations might be that actually might be a legitimate hardship or problem. That's why, again, I understand, Billy, the idea of having something that is open-ended doesn't necessarily sit right with me either. It's just because we don't have a lot to rely on in terms of other towns, other regulations, pre-existing law. We do have to adapt this to some degree.
Thank you.
Did I understand correctly, though, that the City Commission already has the right to basically do a survey like this without the RTM approving it? Yeah. Therefore, like, could you do something that is like less like imposing and perhaps like online, where a person where you send it to everybody and you know maybe you get a good response and you kind of see, okay, we got a good response without having to take it to this level. But you may also not get that response, and you say, you know, now we really do need to find another way to get people's attention. Have you done that already, or?
We have 5 years of pamphlets.
Oh, you have done that?
That say that sump pumps are a problem, and calls, and it's been periods. So this is the next step from that.
I think we need to educate people on what the alternative is.
Yeah.
Sewage running in the streets. I think
Do we have an
that would
idea
get
of
somebody's
how many
attention.
households we're talking about? Or is that what the,
It's a lot.
but is it 2,000, is it 5,000, is it, I mean, do we just not know at all?
What do you want to guess?
It's 500 to 1,000.
500 to 1,000.
Take overlay the wetlands map, where houses were built when your uncle was building.
Right, yeah, right.
Okay, or Charlie,
Yeah.
when Charlie was building houses.
Yeah.
And a lot of those are now McMansions built on the old foundation.
Right.
The old wetlands conditions with a wine cellar in the basement. Zoning and wetlands.
Right.
And there's a correlation there. And when we found we had problems with our manholes and some of the others were along the sewer sheds, gravity mostly, that follows the streams. So there's a lot of that going on where you could start to guess where there might be more problems.
I'm just wondering if though, a proactive approach to getting the job corrected might be to take some of that $500,000 that you want to save and maybe have a $200,000 remediation fund that maybe people could tap, you know, after they've completed the work. Maybe they can submit something up to $500 or whatever to get a rebate. So those who can't afford it might jump at that, and those who are going to snub their nose
We've
are not.
talked about all those things, and they're going to be in the mix, but this was our first step.
Yeah. And Deborah, you have a question?
Was there any discussion of having the town offer to pay for a qualified individual to conduct the inspection? Because if to his point, I mean, we're not in the sewer system, but I would have no idea. And now I'm asked to sign a paper that says I do or I don't, and I don't know. And if I want to find out, I got to go pay for somebody to figure it
It's
out.
like Eversource going in your house and telling you what plugs to, you know.
Yeah. But if the town says, hey, look, we'll pay for an expert to come check it out for you.
No.
Well, you know what?
Nobody wants an expert in their house.
If you're getting fined $250, you might think it's a better alternative.
I'm going to say absolutely, especially if you know the areas that are going to be the hotspots when you have the most problems. You don't have to pay for an expert to go in every house in town. You know these 3 areas are going to be 40% of the problem. Send an expert, but I agree with you, pay for an expert to go into that area.
If you tell people we'll pay for someone to do a check for you, number one, you're going to get a much higher quality response.
call in.
Well,
Seriously.
We're from the government.
we will provide a qualified expert to check for you.
I don't know how plumbing works, and I didn't want to pay for an engineer. And we have an engineer, our commission, we love the idea of an engineer checking boxes for whatever.
I'm just saying, give people the option.
I gave the option of a qualified person. If you don't feel comfortable, hire somebody. That was me. And
So-
if you do feel comfortable signing an affidavit, knowing where your plumbing goes, as I do, I'll sign it.
So, I do want to go back to the form, because I also looked at the forms when I was looking at this. It says, do you have a sump pump? The answer is yes. Do you know where it goes? I don't know. That's a checkbox there. Then, you can speak to Public Works, and you can arrange for somebody to go and help. So, you don't have to pay for somebody.
Okay.
The town's willing to go and do it.
Is there a checkbox that says, I don't want to know?
Yeah, but I
Yes,
think
that's
that's
the
important to emphasize.
$250.
Look, if you don't know, that's okay. Call us,
Yeah.
and we'll help you out.
So maybe John,
That's already on the form.
maybe Jay-Z has to get it in his Saturday notes and just.
One important consideration here too, and I think this is where sort of the legal review of it comes in very pertinently. One of the, I'd say maybe the most complaints I've gotten, not complaints, but criticisms I've gotten thus far is about the authorized agent provision in the regulations and about, are you saying that a town official can just come into my house and check my property?
Yeah.
We're not. It's the authorization provision in the regulations is supposed to be very soft. It was drafted to be with reasonable notice, at reasonable business hours, with your consent, we'll come in and check. Even with that, what I would consider rather soft language, I've already gotten a lot of pushback from people about what that means. My concern would be that if we now adopt regulations that have a town-appointed qualified individual who can enter your home, that is, as much as there are some people who would be, probably beneficial and be grateful for the town covering the cost coming in and doing that, you'd meet just as many people who would say, I don't, never in a million years would I want this person.
I just always
and they would be the
I'd
ones
be
to be most
surprised the
Maybe
number
not
of people who actually
if
do want to do
And if
this
it's-
thing,
if it's
and make it
volume
as easy
action.
for them as
But
possible.
if you combine a couple of these ideas together, and I'm
Right.
going to shut it after this, I promise. But if you combine these together, hey, we have a town person that'll come out and do this themselves. We have a remediation fund. It's limited. It'll run out at some point. But if we find out there's a problem,
Do it
we'll
now.
have payment. And we have a checkbox that's coming in the next time you try to sell your home that this is going to be inspected. And if you want to sell your home, this is going to have to be remediated in the future.
We can't add that checkbox.
Yeah.
Right.
We cannot.
And there's no, even if we have
The
the.
town doesn't do those things here. I like your idea in some ways, but it's,
But in the building
We have
department,
codes
could
for
it be a
everything.
checkbox for a CO
they are.
Understand what?
or a new build or anything like that,
They're
right?
involved. They're-
If you want to do it, yeah, but if you combine these things together, then all people will be like, hey, if I want someone to come in and check this box so I don't have problems in the future. And if there's a problem, there's a fund that's going to help me if I get on top of this early, then you have incentives for people to do this. And something in the mail, where I might get fined if I don't answer the right way, I'm just going to check the boxes in a way that like get me out of trouble.
I want to bring this back, though, to the ordinance, because, and build on what David said. And Bobby, I'll tell you my concern. My concern is the RTM has two things that really are our power. Number one, we control the ordinances. It says so in the charter, all right? So whatever goes on in ordinances, we control it. We don't have to go back to the Board of Selectmen because we did the plastic bag without any input from them, all right? You guys, many of you may have participated in that. The other thing is, we approve the finances. If things go on, we have the final say on bonding, we have the final say on the budgets, we have the final say on appropriations. So
Which
we
makes
handle-
us responsible to the town for those things.
That's correct. So
But the sewer commission is completely separate.
I fully understand.
Financially.
Yeah, no, and that's part of the reason why we're going to be explaining that to everyone. I fully understand that you have I'm speaking to you, please, that the commission has the authority to do the regulations that you have there. But as soon as you come to the RTM and say you can't look at the regulations, I'm voting no, because you're not going to circumvent the authority and set a precedent that we can in the future, and other people can say, well, you don't have control of the ordinances. Now, I do believe that when we're looking, and I saw David's comments in that, if we're not changing the ordinances, and I don't really care about how defined we are in that, but we can't have an ordinance, we can't have two regulations, one of which says 6 months, and one of them says 30 days. I do believe that there's a lot of discretion that is solely sitting with the commission. I'm going to say this here from my perspective, and I am not an attorney. But they decide whether or not when to initiate the fine. It says we can do it after 30 days in the other article. Doesn't mean it happens. It says that they can waive the fine at any time. Solely their discretion. They can add, even on the financial, I don't want the finances or even to allude that there's financial assistance that in any ordinance, because that's solely their discretion on how they want to do it. They can come and say, we're going to use, which I know was discussed in the commission, we're going to say who gets taxed, or we're going to go to the Director of Human Resources, which is in the blight, and that'll be our starting point. And if they want to expand on that, if they want to cap that, that's their decision. RTM has nothing to say about that. That's fully their purview. But when you're saying, here's our regulations, you can't look at it, but I need you to approve this up or down, that's a problem.
How is it a problem for you?
Because you're telling me,
I'm not telling you.
Because
you're
you're saying that you need the RTM's approval to do fining, to do the fines. Bobby just told us that.
Let me back up here.
Well, you said it's ambiguous. The Sewer Commission's authority is ambiguous with respect to its fining authority, so you need the RTM's imprimatur to, on the fines at least in your regulation, in order to proceed with them without the fear that a homeowner might come and challenge them and say the Sewer Commission wasn't authorized to do this. Great, understand, and we're happy to help. But if you need the RTM's approval, then you also need to take our comments into consideration. And so we need to work together on this and not, do a my way or the highway sort of thing.
That's the process, I agree. Whether or not the need is the
and that's
here.
Okay. And that's all David and I are saying.
Yeah.
We want to have, look, everybody here should want this ordinance to happen.
Good.
We're all saving 10 to 20% of our bill, all right? And while it may only buy you a McDonald's, the fact of the matter is we don't need to have to do that. It makes sense, but at the same time, we need to work together. And I understand, but we got a message that this is an up or down, and that's not a good message.
So Jack, I think I can address this question for you. All right, I think that there are two different concepts at play here. When it comes to does the RTM inherently have the authority to make or impose regulations, make or impose changes to the Sewer Commission's regulations? The answer is no. That is the way that it works.
Fully understand.
And I think that the concept of is this an up or down derives from there is no legal capacity in which the RTM can say we're conditioning X on Y changes to your regulations. In this context, though, David is correct. We are here in front of the RTM asking for an authorization to have a citation process under an ordinance for all the reasons we just discussed here. I'm also, I think part of the message that is getting lost here is that it's not, sorry RTM, we don't want your input on how we're doing this. And part of the reason why I'm trying to explain this as a living document, there's going to have to be changes moving forward is, I welcome, as the one who's probably going to be drafting this change, I welcome the comments you may have. I enjoy them, David, you made some substantive improvements to what I drafted. I appreciate that. And I want to take them into consideration. I want to put them in to the regulations as we move forward. I want more of those. Give me your comments, please. I'll stay up all night reading them. So it's not that, I don't think the message should be, no RTM, don't have any input, just take it or leave it, walk away. It's that fully acknowledging the Sewer Commission is going to have to change these as the situation develops.
So I'll tell you my perspective, from an RTM perspective, because that's the only thing I care about having amended Appendix B and what our roles are. And also saying, which was a major change to this town, that there are two budget-making authorities in this town, the Board of Finance and the RTM. And with that comes some control from state law. I'm here to work. But if there's certain things that we can implement from what David said, that just enhances, just do clarification. I think that some clarification is good, not by defining this is what extended time is. Leave that out, for that. But we can't have two things that are saying one's 6 months, one's 30 days. And Ed, who's still here, and I talked about it, that one of the concepts is that if the town finds it, you got 30 days to fix it, and part of that can be coming back and saying, this is what we're going to try and do, and you don't get fined, all right? 6 months is you are honest with us to say, oh, I'm pumping the wrong place. We want to give you 6 months, and quite honestly, if it takes you 9 months, I guarantee that commission, and I can't really say it, but I guarantee that Reese will say that you're going to get 9 months, all right? I just want some of the simple things to make sure that Article 11 and Article 13 are consistent, because that's a challenging court. I do know, and I make this simplistic, but the state law doesn't give you right to fine for not returning a piece of paper. And that's part of the problem here. And so we want to give you that authority, but we want to make sure that we're also happy with some minor corrections before it comes back to us, which I think we can do, because Bobby, you even said some of these are good. And so bring them to the commission, get the good ones in, and let's move forward so it shows that there's some mutual acceptance here, because at the end of the day, I personally is one of the people who still wanted it on the February RTM agenda, and then if we can solve something, we can have some red lines onto, hey, the commission has agreed to this, here's the other thing, and we can put it back on the agenda. So
let's do that.
So that's what I'm here to do, is let's see what we can do.
Do it.
All right, well,
Appreciate it.
well, we need not just my comments, we need the whole committee's comments. So
that's
let me suggest a path going forward here, because we've now spent over an hour talking about this, and it's been a great conversation. I want to thank everyone for it, but I think at this point it would be most productive if we got an actual resolution that we could review and comment on and report on to the RTM as to exactly what the RTM is being asked to do, a revised ordinance to address some of the concerns that were brought up at the October RTM meeting, and that are reflected in the comments that I put into the regulation, because those comments reflected some of the concerns and issues raised on the floor of the RTM and in our committee meeting last October, and then a revised set of regulations that, even if they're not yet adopted by the Sewer Commission, that, I'll take the Sewer Commission's word that yes, we plan to adopt these. And, I don't know if we can get it before on the February agenda at this point, because that meeting's a week and a half away, and I'm going to be traveling for work in the next week, so I'm not going to have a chance to get back to this, and I don't know what everyone else's schedule is. But we should be able to get this on the RTM agenda for March, if we can get that material to us.
It doesn't sound like the changes you talked about are substantive. They're small in nature. The conflicts.
Some are substantive.
Yeah, we've circulated them. They're not, they're.
We've wordsmith this for 3 years.
Right.
So many cooks in the kitchen.
But, you guys didn't sit through the RTM. No one appeared at our TGS&A meeting in October, which is one of the reasons that our committee said we're not going to touch this, because we don't know the background.
We didn't know who sent it to us.
Well,
so Reese,
still, but I think that's the process here. Yeah. We need a fresh resolution, we need a fresh ordinance, and a fresh set of regulations that our committee can sit down and work on and come to an agreement with.
Have you taken a poll of everybody to sort of see if anyone else has more than your red line?
No, that's what they're going to work on.
To talk
about. Part of the things that I had a conversation with Ed on, my goal, if we can't get it in February, is to get it in March. You got to wait 10 days before you can send out the letter. Your goal is to do it April 1st, if I recall, right? Yeah. So you can continue on that path, and whether or not it's April 1st or April
15th, longer
3rd, or yeah, that's a long way. But the April 5th or 6th or something, that's our goal also. But I think there wants to be.
So it sounds like you guys need full agreement, full time.
And to work and get some things done.
We don't have anything to consider before us right now.
Sounds like you're 99% there.
Yes.
Well, I don't know, we haven't heard from the committee.
98.5.
So,
Such an optimist.
but if you're listening to what David's saying, and then he'll
We
listen from
haven't
his
seen
or
anything
me,
yet.
we're trying to get this done.
Let's do it then.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
All right, so you guys do the work, get it back, Bob will work with you. One commissioner out of 5, you know, I'm not nits and ats guy. This is throwing a dart, we'll see how close it is, and we're going to adjust it as needed. It's the best we can do.
Right, but at the end of the day, the town is going to come back to the RTM and say, what did you guys vote on?
Yeah.
So that's why we need to be comfortable
You
with
got to
it.
explain in the grocery store.
Right.
We have that same problem. Totally understand.
Yeah, right, okay.
David,
All right, well, I don't want to keep you guys more, although Bobby, you may want to stick around and hear what some of the comments are, but, you know, I know it's almost 9 o'clock, and I feel sorry for Ed and Darren having to sit through all this, and you too, Reese.
P&T was worse.
Yeah. So I think now, you know, it's up to you guys whether you want to stay, but I'd like to open up the floor to other committee members, whether they have suggestions on at least the proposed regs or the ordinance we discussed last time, or whether you'd just like to see a revised draft get circulated and we can meet again before the March meeting. So thoughts?
I would like to see all of the things you just outlined, and I do think there should be special focus paid to the 60, you know, the discrepancy between the timing of fines. And I at least would like to see a little more clarity on what, you know, someone would need to provide to get additional time. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that, but I totally understand this needs to be flexible, but I think some of the flexibility is overly vague and ambiguous at this point, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with that.
Understood.
And I
The
think,
law itself is not flexible. Whatever is a law, it's not flexible. So
And while I might trust the people making decisions
say
today, I might not trust them tomorrow.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
so does
Before
everyone,
too many judges who've had very different
everyone-
views of what the law is.
bet your life on it.
Right.
okay, so does everyone have this resolution of the RTM, of the town of Darien approving, and it's, you know, the whereas, now therefore be it resolved. Does everyone have this document? Let me just quickly pass it. See, it's somewhere in there. No, but I mean, that's what was supposed to come to us.
Right.
And then this is the ordinance that you know, drafted that is different from your markup.
Well, that's the proposed ordinance we reviewed in October, and
Right.
the RTM rejected. So I think, Ed, you taking off?
Yeah, I'm going to go upstairs, but thank you
Oh,
all
no,
very
thank
much.
you so much.
Thank
Ed.
you.
We appreciate your time.
Darren, Bob.
Do you want me to,
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, folks.
Ed, do you want me to come up?
As soon as you know.
So, yeah, right, the RTM tabled the proposed ordinance back in October because it needed more work. So I think coming back with the same ordinance isn't going to do what...
No, I know, but we have to have a
Get us
starting
too far.
point
Right.
for what it is supposed to look like in the end. And it's not going to be the exact same words, but this is what we are supposed to be
Yes.
modeling,
Now,
right?
one thing I want
With our changes. So to me, it's a starting point, and then we look at your markup, right? So we see what you have, and I mean, I think we need to do some reading, you know, right? Wouldn't you rather look at this on your own and then, you know, see what you think?
One point I want to make here, just regarding the ordinance and as opposed to the regulations. There are two different things, two different documents obviously to consider. I have not, at this point, received any comments regarding the language of the ordinance itself.
Can you just put that with that?
Obviously, if anybody has any, please send them to me. I want to be very cautious with the ordinance because ultimately the sewer system is the sewer commission's purview. If we put too much into the ordinance, suddenly we are stepping on their authority and their ability to act. What I think is probably going to be more productive here, in my own opinion, you can listen or not, is if we make substantive changes to the regulations with the RTM's input, then we can take those back to the sewer commission, present them to the sewer commission, and have them vote on them as well. My preference here, my recommendation would be to keep the ordinance rather narrow, just because of the two different sort of, purviews and tracks we have here between the RTM and the sewer commission.
Right, but most ordinances have a set of procedures with respect to how the fines are going to work, how the notices go out.
Yes.
And that's not in this.
There's a statute, 7-152C, which deals with, and that's a good question, because the authorizing ordinance 7-148 cross-references 7-152C. And so, in layman's terms, 7-148 is the ordinance that says you can issue citations for doing bad stuff. That statute then says the process by which you do that, by which you have a hearing, by which you send out those fines, by which you go about trying to enforce them or collect them, that's a separate statute, 7-152C. So what is happening is when you see that ordinance right there, it's referencing 148, that's the authority to issue citations. You go look at 148, that says if you want to know how the process goes to do this, go to 152C. So that's why it's not within the text of the ordinance itself.
So, David, what your markup here is to
The regulations.
the regulations.
Yes.
And yes, we have to know what that is, but, so you want us to look at the whole thing, to go ahead and look
Oh,
at
of
the whole
course.
thing, even though, okay, all right.
Yes, I think I'd say
Okay,
the
all right.
original advocate that the RTM received both.
As long,
Yes.
right, okay.
Yes.
So then this is the document we need to start with.
I would recommend, if in terms of changes you may want to make, I would say please make them to the regulations so that I can take them to the sewer commission. Where the ordinance should really just be saying, this is the reason we have this ordinance to, create citations for the sewer commission for their regulations. Really shouldn't have much more than that within the text of the ordinance itself.
Okay, and so that would be section 1013, 1 through 12.
So the ordinance is numbered 22-52. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yes, those are the documents.
Well, this is the,
That's what you just handed me.
yes, right.
Yes.
All right, well, I think if we get a clean set of all those things in the next week or so, that would help everyone to focus, and we can call, don't think we have another regular meeting scheduled to March, but, I'd be willing to do a special meeting just to get everyone's thoughts down, and then be prepared to vote at our next regular meeting on, the ordinance, the regs, and the proposed resolution. I think that makes sense, unless anyone else has any other ideas. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Okay.
So, I think we've made some progress. I hope. All right. Well, thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it. Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you so late. All right. Well, so the next item on our agenda, and I promise not to keep you too long here, is to discuss the first selectman's request that the RTM review the Code of Ordinances and the Charter and come up with proposals that we can amend those documents to make the town government more efficient. Rules Committee met on Monday night and discussed what that kind of entailed for us. The first selectman, as you may recall, asked town citizens and residents to email him directly about their thoughts on how to make town government more efficient. And, I guess he'll collect whatever those comments are and feed them on to us. But Rules has thought, the RTM is really the closest to how town government works among the legislative, as the legislative body of the town. So they've asked that all the standing committees as well as the districts meet in the coming months and kind of assemble their ideas on what they think needs to be done to make this town work a little better. I don't know if anyone has any ideas tonight. I'm not necessarily looking for them, but we can discuss them, obviously. But what the Rules Committee did is they set a deadline for the end of March for the standing committees and the districts to meet and discuss what their proposed items are for the town code and the charter. And then they're supposed to funnel all those to Tgs&A, and we're going to be the clearinghouse. Hooray. And
I'll use that word.
Put them all together, and then we're going to report to the RTM at our June meeting, because, April and May are going to be taken up by the budget for most town committees. And then I guess we get the districts are going to meet by the end of March. We get all the info from the districts and the standing committees by the end of April. And then in June, we're going to report to the RTM as to what our recommendation is for proposed amendments to the charter and the town code. So that's kind of the outline that's been presented to us. So, we need to put our thinking caps on if there's anything that we think needs to be done. And, we're probably closer to the town code and the charter than most other committees are. So, I'm all ears for ideas. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that, any thoughts? Any thoughts on the first selectman's proposal of
Does he have a list in mind already?
He did not put one forward at the meeting the other night. He's kind of thrown this open as a Rorschach test for the town.
Okay.
Can I
You know,
get-
he just basically said, you know,
Can I give an
Jack, sure,
example?
sure.
So prior to Kate Bush leaving, Kate Bush, Jen Chinesky, and I came to the realization that there is no state law to govern if either the Board of Finance or the RTM votes down a Board of Selectmen or Board of Ed operating budget. We all thought that everything reverted to the last year. Wives' tale. Doesn't exist. So we have to put together a team of people where we can supply some of the technical expertise to then go. But that's one of the ordinances that we need to put into our town of how the town of Darien will handle that. And so it may mean getting somebody from Jim Palin, somebody, Rich Rudel from the Board of Ed, myself, Jen Chinesky, Town Administrator, Josh, and a couple of other people in here to take and look at that and say, here's what we think it should be. Have fun, Tgs&A. Go work and make this into law. But that's an example of one. There are other things. If you think something could just work better, and then we find out it's not an ordinance, we'd like to pass those on too, all right? And you may find that you just think it'll work better. When we throw it over here, you guys might say, oh, wait, that does require an ordinance change or a charter change. And so this is sort of a brain dump. Anything you didn't like, bring forward in your district, in your thing, and all you guys represent all the districts, all right? Like Doug's in my district. You guys are going to be very important in those district meetings because it's all coming to you. So, you know, I'm hopeful that you guys, even though there's new people here, take a leadership role. I mean, I'm on rules, that's why, as is Joe. So,
Is there a flow chart? I feel like I've seen one. Is there a flow chart for the town, just as a starting?
I wouldn't call it a flow chart.
Oh, it doesn't really
More
flow?
of a cross
There's no
chart.
flow? Oh, okay.
my funny thing, don't take this wrong. Remember what we were just talking about? That's the flow chart. It may not really exist, but, you know.
But that's something that maybe should be made to exist?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
fully agree.
Well, and just for our committee's purposes as well. I mean, in you know, everybody probably wasn't privy to some of the emails, but this sump pump thing was like, it looked to me like just a comedy of errors. It's like, who in the world would send something to 3 committees and then want to vote on it at the next, RTM meeting? I mean, that was really kind of, it sort of went wide, and then we were supposed to vote on it at a February meeting, not knowing what other committees were doing. You know, I mean, you guys, you talked to them, but that was just on your own initiative. It's not because it's, we need more structure, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think in the middle of budget, with everything else that the committee that I represent handles, that the sump pump reading those regs were on the top of my list? We're really lucky that it was 9 degrees out and I wasn't going outside, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
But in reality, it is a lot of things like that. Now, I will add something from just my takeaway from listening to John. John looks that there may be 5 or 6 different land use committees. And so how you go and access and what they do and other things like that. I'm a government geek, all right? So I know where to find certain things. I've been doing this for a while. But the normal person doesn't. I will tell you one thing that I asked of Ed. On that form, because I am an old accountant, it asks for the list number. How many people know the list number of their property?
I could find it in a minute.
Yeah, you can. But the rest of us,
Yeah, they're gonna go
unless
digging up
you
in the
know where
attic
to-
somewhere.
Now, on the form that they're sending out, your list number is going to be there. All right, so that saves 1,000 calls into town hall. But those are different things. Think about anything, open space, whatever you have that you've gone in. I gave one to Chinesky, doesn't change ordinance. I am so used for having a PDF form that I fill out, that I sign and I can submit about, as opposed to finding a postage stamp or coming to town hall and dropping off a form. So that's something I said, what does it cost for us to have this? I mean, can we at least enter the 20th century?
For example, I'm on the Board of Ethics, and I can't tell you how many complaints we have received on the Board of Ethics for the last 10 years that just don't even fall under the Code of Ethics. Our Code of Ethics is very narrowly circumscribed to basically prohibit, conflicts of interest for using your town position for personal gain or some sort of like promotion of a personal interest. And people are very frustrated about that. There's no duty of competence. There's no duty of honesty or zealously performing your work. And I'm not sure those should be written into the Code of Ethics, but one of the things I was thinking about is I'd like to take a look at the Code of Ethics and see whether we do need some tweaks to it or some additions, or maybe put some additional duties in there. So that's the sort of thing that, if there's some area of the town government that interests you or that you think may be deficient in a way that can be remedied by a change of the ordinances, the change in the charter, this is our opportunity. Although, as TGS&A, we always have that opportunity.
Yeah.
We can amend and the RTM in general can amend the ordinances and the charter at any time. So.
And David mentioned something at rules. So part of what you guys are going to be compiling is going to be provided over to John, all right? And he'll be doing it. But if there's something that this committee feels that you want to do, I'm going to go back to the first thing that I said. We control the ordinances. We don't need anybody else's approval if this committee feels we should do this.
And put it before the RTM. We decide about, and then we present, and we don't need everybody's permission. It doesn't have to go through all the committees.
You don't need anybody's permission but this committee itself.
The Board of Selectmen is advisory,
powerful
all the other
committee
town
in the
boards.
RTM.
Right, all the other
That's until we have a charter revision.
Yeah.
All the other
And that's gone.
I'm sorry.
I'm not
What you're talking about's gone.
What I'm saying is that all the other town boards and commission, including the Board of Selectmen and
We
the
need to
First
hear
Selectmen,
you.
are just advisory bodies to us.
I need to hear your point of view on this.
We can listen to them and take their opinions, and we should certainly do listen to them and, value their opinions because they have very different perspectives on how the town works. And, the Board of Selectmen really has a more holistic view than we do, because I sat on the Board of Selectmen for 6 years. But they're not the fount of all knowledge, and they're not the final say. We are. The buck starts and stops with us. So, it makes us in some ways one of the most powerful committees in town.
I've said that to Frank all the time. A lot of people think F&B is. No, we're not. You guys are the most important committee for the RTM.
So with that, everyone I hope will think about it and think about potential charter revision and ordinance revisions. And we can discuss them at our meeting in March or maybe even before if we meet a special meeting on the sump pump in the next few weeks.
Well, it's a good exercise to go through anyway, to just, especially our committee should be looking at, top down and overall, and are we, do we have things in order as we can, as much as we can make them in order. And Joe, for instance, earlier was just talking about, something that I know nothing about charter revisions, and it's, I think we should know that it's not obvious that we should do a charter revision, but we should do the study that would lead to a charter revision, even if we decide at the end, no, we don't want to do that, because we lose a lot. And I don't think everybody, I don't know that. Joe does. I want to hear.
I would encourage everybody to go on the town website. If you go to the town code, which is if you go into town government, and then there's a drop-down menu, and on the far right there's the town code, you will find the town charter and the town code of ordinances. And, on one of these cold days, take a little time to read through it.
On this?
Every day is a test.
Right. So,
and Jack will draw us the Byzantine flow chart of authority.
For a living.
So we are moving on to 9:15. Any other comments on charter revision or code revision? Questions, comments?
Buckle up.
Complaints? No? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is new business. Any new business anyone would like to raise? Going once, going twice? Sold. All right, next item on the agenda is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Doug Cruz, and second Matt Baldwin.
Unanimous.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thank you.
If you have a charter revision,